Hi, I have a tip for you today. How many times have you got a top and then you put the backing on and your backing isn't wide enough? We always want 2 to 4 inches on each side. Well, this one, this is maybe an inch. And so this is what I've done. I've taken strips of fabric and I just basted it using the basting just outside of the edge of the top, right along there, and then I can put my clamps on. I get equal tension as I clamp that on, and then when I'm finished, well, actually, when I stitch, rather than having this pinned, it's stitched. When I stitch the design across, it's not going to hit a pin. If it stitches over the top of that, that's okay, because I'm going to cut that off at the edge. Then, when I advance the fabric, I add another one on, and then when I'm finished with my quilt, I just use my rotary cutter and cut it off, square it up, and that goes in the trash.
Hi, I'm Kim from the Handi Quilter studio, and I have a tip for you today that's going to save you hours. Have you ever run out of backing and had to take the entire quilt off, stitch it at your home machine, and then put it back on? Well, guess what? You can do it all in the frame, and I'm going to show you how today. So your first move is to go ahead and remove the pins from the top, and I'm going to go ahead and just leave the top pole up in the cradle so you guys can see what I'm doing. I'm going to go ahead and fold the batting and the front up, and it's very important that you do both because you don't want to stitch through the batting. Next, you take the backing that you're going to add on and make sure that you do right side up so that it is next to the right side of the backing. And very carefully just remove one pin from the edge of the leader that's holding the backing in place and pin the edge of the fabric right there. And then go ahead and stretch it across, making sure that you've still got the right side up, and do the same thing on the other side. Now, I like to take and do maybe another pin or two partway through, but you don't need to do all of them to hold it nicely in place. Now I'm going to grab 2 more pins, and I'm going to take and pull the backing up so that it is nice and smooth, and I'm going to put a pin on the side, maybe about 6 inches up from the edge, and then I'm going to come over and do it on the other side. And I'm going to take advantage of my clamps, and I'm actually going to use them to hold this backing fabric up in place. Now very carefully, go ahead and move the quilting machine over the top, your top and your batting there. And then you have to make sure and very carefully tuck the backing fabric up. Make sure that you don't have any wrinkles and that it's nice and smooth, and it's all up in the throat space behind the needle, right here. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and run my hand over it one time, make sure it's all nice and smooth, and then I'm going to very carefully set this bar down because I'm ready to start stitching. And I like to stitch maybe about 2 inches away because I do not want to risk hitting one of these pins. And I am going to set my channel lock for horizontal. If you don't have your Pro Stitcher to be able to do that here, you can set a channel lock on the back of your machine. And I'm just going to go ahead and take a stitch, and then I'm just going to do a straight stitch all the way across. And when I get to the end, I'll just go ahead and turn my channel lock off and cut my thread, and then I will just move the machine out of the way. And I'm going to go ahead and lift my bar again, and then I'm going to very carefully remove all the pins along here, holding the backing in place, because we've now added that extra piece on. And then I'm going to very carefully trim this seam. So let's set this bar back down real quick. And I'm going to trim this seam about 1/2 inch away just with a pair of scissors. I usually like to have a little bit of a bigger seam allowance in my backing. So So I'm going to very carefully just go through and do this. Then I'm going to remove the last 2 pins that I had up here at the side. Don't forget to pull these out. Very, very important. Undo the clamps that was holding the fabric on the side. And then I'll go ahead and grab my backing here and look at that. I have extra backing added, and all I have to do is pin the edge. I can give it a little finger press, and you'll be off and ready to go.
Sometimes when you add 2 layers of batting, such as a 80-20 and a wool, or you use some nice cuddle minky, or you do a denim quilt, so you got lots of thick seams, your hopping foot wants to push the fabric. And it's like, how can I avoid that? I want to show you how to avoid it. You can actually raise your hopping foot 1 turn and it will take care of that. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to loosen that, and you need an 8mm wrench, and you're going to loosen that. So you'll roll that down, and then you're going to turn your foot up once, and it raised it once right there. And then you're going to tighten that nut right there back up. So we're going to go ahead and tighten it up. And as I tighten that, I'm going to put my wrench onto it, and I'm going to hold the foot. See, as I hold that foot? And so I want to tighten that up. So I'm going to turn it this way, but I'm going to hold the foot with my hand and kind of put pressure going that way, okay? So as I turn one way, because the important thing is to get that foot so that the needle is centered down in there. So as I drop that down, I want to test that to see. So I kind of readjusted that, and now we want to test that and make sure that foot is centered right down in there. And then the important thing is, after you finish this quilt, is you lower that back down and tighten it back up. So you'll loosen the nut, lower it, turn it back down so that it's at the accurate spacing, or else it'll cause skipping of stitches. So remember to lower it after you've done that quilt.